Aloha, welcome to Just Talking 24, page 33. Um, this week's page is inspired by the title of this page, Just Talking. The other day, occasionally I go for walks here, walks there, and I was walking along the Alawai Canal. And the Alawai Canal, if you don't know, if you're not familiar with Hawaii, especially with Honolulu, it's a canal that semi circumnavigates Waikiki. It's on the north side and it goes to the west side of Waikiki and it empties out into the ocean. And its original conception was to drain the low-lying areas of Waikiki. Waikiki is built on the lower flats of the South Shore, and it originally had duck ponds, taro patches. It was just like a swampy area, and they drained it all, and they developed it into the jewel that it's become. But anyway, there's a canal there, and this canal is so strange because it doesn't have a railing. You have the Alawai Boulevard, which is a four-lane roadway. You have a sidewalk, and you have the canal. There is nothing that stops a person from falling off from the sidewalk into the canal. I have been after the city for conservatively 4 decades to put a railing up because part of the canal does have a railing. It has a nice when they built this concrete sculptured concrete railing, but this part it wasn't. And I've asked them how many times, and the only response I've ever gotten from the city, official response, was that it's a matter of jurisdiction. They don't know if who's going to pay for it, right? The city because it's the city sidewalk, or the state because it's the uh, division, the Harbors Division, and the Department of Land and Natural Resources, because it's a waterway. So they don't know who's going to pay for it, so they just disregard the whole thing. And I guess we're just going to have to wait. It's amazing that in all the years it's been here, and that's like almost 100 years, no one's fallen in and drowned. You know, to me that just blows my mind on statistics, because all you need is one drunk guy and just go over. But anyway, it's a nice walk, nice flat ground, and I can't walk as long as I could. So I'm walking there with my stick. You guys all know about my stick. And there are these benches. I don't know who designed these benches, but they're not made for sitting down. I mean, they're pipes that resemble the shape of a bench, and I guess they're to they don't want the homeless people, you sitting on them or camping on them. They're uncomfortable. But anyway, sit down to rest. So I was sitting there, and then this other elderly gentleman came by, and we exchanged pleasantry. Hey, good morning. He sat down, he looked around, and he started it with one real simple statement. And the statement was, "This place has changed." And I looked around, I said, "Yeah, from what it was." He goes, "Yeah." And then he goes, "You remember the fishing chairs?" And I go, "I do." And what they were they had these wooden bridges, a one-man wooden walkway that was elevated above the water. It went from the sidewalk out maybe about 20, 25 yards into the Alawai. And there was a chair at the end. And these fishermen would go out there and sit down and they'd fish. At that time, you could eat. The water was clean. You could eat the fish and the crabs out of Alawai. People would go fishing, crabbing all the time. And that was until our illustrious mayor dumped 450 million gallons of raw sewage into the Alawai, because he said that our sewer system was going to break if they didn't do the emergency fixes. So he had to. I mean, I don't know why he just didn't make a emergency um, bypass, or even you get a pumping station and pump it into trucks. But nope, just dump it into the Alawai. 450 million gallons. But he said, "Oh, don't worry. Mother Nature will clean it up." Of course, it doesn't. It sinks. It's raw sewage. It's just going to settle, and that's what happened. And he said, "Oh, that the ocean was going to clean it up. It's so full of it." But anyway, yeah, you can't eat. I would not eat anything out of that waterway now. And the kids, they use it to practice their canoe. So they all this polluted water, it's unreal. But he sat down, and so I asked him, "What you live around here?" And he said he lives. Well, now he lives there. His grandmother's or his grandparents, they own property in the area adjacent to the Alawai. We call it Kapahulu. And but he actually grew up on the western plains of Oahu called Eva. And he goes, "Well, what about you?" And I said, "Well, I live right up the valley." And he goes, "Oh," he says, "You local, you from over here?" I go, "Yeah, my grandmother has a house in Kapahulu also." So we were laughing, and he says, so you went Kaimoki, and remember I told you you get two local guys within 10 minutes. What subject comes out? What high school did you attend? And the school that he asked me about is about 2 blocks from the Alawai Canal. You have the Alawai Canal. North of that, you have the Alawai Golf Course. Then you have a street, a 4-lane street called Date Street, and then you have my high school. So it's that I'm that close to the Alawai, which is right at the base of Diamond Head. And so I told him, "Yeah, that's where I went." I said, "So you went to Campbell?" And he said, "Oh yeah, because he's from Eva." And see, you can tell from where the person lives what high school they attended. And Campbell is named after James E. Campbell. He was one of our missionary families. They got a huge estate, the Campbell estate, massive, acres and acres, and that they got from the king. Yeah, the king gave them the land. They never paid for it. I don't know how they got it, but they got it. But that's another story. It's called the Great Mahele, or the Great Land Grab. But anyway, so we were talking, and he said that he lived in Eva. The grandparents died, and he wanted to come back into town. And so they rebuilt on the grandparents' property. That's where he's staying now with his family. He's got a family. He's got kids, and 2 grandkids are living there too. It's a extended family, typical in Hawaii. So I said, "Yeah, it's really nice." And then we used to talk about, and we talked about the boat rides. He goes, "You remember the boat rides?" And I go, "Yeah, I do." And what they were at the end of well, not the end, right about 2/3 of the way down, there was a concessionaire. There's the Alawai Clubhouse. And behind there on the canal, there was this concessionaire that used to rent electric boats, these little 2-man boats that people would take out at night. You ride along Alawai because there's enough light there to see. It's lit from you get the light from the Alawai Canal. But anyway, people would you take your date out on the Alawai, and then they turn off the light on the boat. And I remember asking my uncle, because we used to go cruising, "Then why they turn off the light?" He says, "Oh, so they don't scare the fish." I said, "Oh, nice. You let the fish, sleep." Yeah, scare the fish. Later on, I learned about submarine races too, but that's all right. Never saw one, but went to watch a lot of them. That's growing up in Hawaii. So anyway, we were laughing about that, and then he asked me, "Oh, you went to Nam?" I told him, "Nope, didn't go to Nam." He goes, "Oh, how come?" I said, "Well, because my senior year, President Nixon did away with the draft." He goes, "Oh, you lucky." I said, "Lucky?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "You went?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "But I was lucky. Um, when he was in high school, he liked to tinker with motors and cars. And so he got drafted into the army, and he signed up for the motor pool. And he went to Nam and he worked in the motor pool. And he said, when you work motor pool in a war area like that, you're not in the thick of the combat. You miles away from the kind of front lines. So he said, he did his well, he said he did 16 months over there. I don't know why 16, but anyway, when he came home, he decided to stay in the army, and he worked at Schofield Barracks, which is the army base up in Waiawa, in the central Oahu. And he put in his 20 years there, and then while he was working for the army, he made friends with the guys from the city. The city and county of Honolulu has a district yard, which is a major maintenance yard in Waipahu. Excuse me, in Waiawa, which is adjacent to, Schofield Barracks. So he made friends, with some of the guys working there. So he put in his 20 with Uncle Sam, and then he put in and he got hired by the city. And by that time already, he was working in the office. He did more administrative stuff. He didn't have to turn wrench, and he worked, until he retired. He retired when he was 66 or something like that from the city and county. He had enough years to retire, so he's double dipping. So he's sitting all right. But he said, it's really neat how life takes you where it has to go, right? And I told him, yeah, right. And he asked about me, and so I told him, um, that my journey through life. He goes, I picked you to be a cop. I told, yeah, I know a lot of people pick me to be a cop. I said, no, I'm the other way. I'm the crook. And he laughed. He goes, well, they kind of the same. But so we were talking, and he goes, oh, what religion am I? And then I told him, I don't have any religion. He goes, what? He goes, well, you don't believe in God? I said, no, 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 I believe in God. Don't get me wrong, brother. God is. I truly believe in God. I just don't believe in the religion of the practice of this, structural thing with worshiping God. He goes, oh, how does that work? So I was explaining to him that, in my understanding, God didn't want a bunch of, robots. He gave us free will. And how he did that was he gave us only two rules. Okay? Rule number one, I am, God is. And rule number two, you just treat each other like you want to be treated. In other words, you have freedom. You just do what's right. You just treat people right. And I said, and everything, believe me, everything will just filter down from that. So he said, oh, I said, you Catholic, right? He goes, yeah, can tell. He goes, yeah, can tell. Oh, by the way, his name was John. Hey, John, shout out to you. But he said, yeah, I can tell. I said, yeah. And he goes, and you Portuguese? I said, yeah, you too. Yes, he's Portuguese. But he he thought about that. He goes, that makes so much sense. I said, well, that's the way I was brought up. I was brought up real simple. My parents never never put down the heavy Christian stuff and all that. He goes, yeah. I said, but you're Portuguese, right? You Portuguese? He goes, yep. Mom, right? I said, my mother was that. My mother, she was white, and my grandmother is a staunch Catholic. I mean, grandma would say rosary every day. But my mom used to go to church every Sunday. She went to church, 7 o'clock mass, St. Augustine, which is like 3 blocks behind us, in Waikiki, because my mom grew up in Waikiki. But I said, my mom went to church every Sunday, 7 o'clock mass, until one Sunday she stopped. And he goes, oh, how come? I said, I don't know. Was December the 7th, 1941. He goes, what? I said, yeah. That was the last mass my mom ever went. I guess she not stopped believing in God. She always believed in God, but then she saw the hypocrisy of religion, maybe. I don't know. We never discussed it. I told him we never discussed it in my house. My mom told me, you want a religion, you find your own religion. She was not big in religion, but she believed in God because she was born a blue baby. Blue baby is a child that's born and they look blue. And the reason why they look blue, they have a problem with their heart and a circulation problem, and the heart doesn't oxygenate through the lungs. There's a plug, either there's a valve problem or a circulation problem, but the not enough blood gets to your lungs, so you don't get your blood doesn't get red. The only reason why it gets red is because it's oxygenated. It gets oxygen from the lungs. And when the baby cries or when they eat and they cough, they turn blue. They actually turn blue, and they're called blue babies. And you got to remember, mom was born in 1928. The surgery to fix blue babies was not invented discovered by Dr. Blaylock, and that was in 1934. So at the time my mom was born, the average life expectancy for a blue baby was 2 years. And this was told to my grandmother and grandfather by the doctor, you know. And so my mom recognized that, and she believed, and she told me many times that every day after her second birthday was considered a gift from God. She actually believed it. So she did believe wholly in God. And she goes, yep, and I thank you for my gift every day. And that's the way my mother was, was raised. And so I was telling him this, and he says, he goes, oh, your mom was kind of, I said, yeah, she was pretty smart, but she was Portuguese. And so he laughed. And he said, let me ask you a question. Told me, he goes, you believe in God, right? Right. He goes, you believe in life and death, right? Yeah. I mean, that's the two gods, bro. You get born and you gotta die. He goes, what happened? You believe in the soul? I said, oh, yeah. The soul is what this is all about. That's what our life on this earth is all about. What? I said, yeah, until you're born, you really don't have a soul. You have a life force in you. You have a life energy in you. But the soul is like your memory banks. Your soul picks up all your actions, all your desires, all your memories, your why you made the decision. It sees what is in your heart. Your soul is the memory banks, and it's not in your brain. To me, I think the soul is part of your energy. It's a confusing system between actual physical tissue in your head, which is your brain, and your memory. Your memory, I think, is in your soul, and your soul is something of God's. It's not. It's your it is your energy, and your brain is the transmitter or transceiver. It receives and transmits. It you can do deciphering with it. It's a calculator. It's a recorder. It can recall. It can do all kinds of stuff. Your brain is everybody. I mean, everything has a brain except I think ants don't have. But maybe their brain is different. Maybe they don't have an exact organ that's a brain, but maybe their whole body is the brain. Who knows? Because the brain is just needed to transceive. And if your body has a built-in transceivers, you don't need a brain. It'll do it automatically. And he said, oh, that's kind of heavy. Yeah, well, I can be like that. But yeah, I believe, that you have this energy. He goes, where does the energy come from? I said, well, it comes from mom and dad. What? I said, yeah, think about it. You, me, everybody here, we're products of the strongest sperm dad had. When you have sex, normally, unless you IVF, but we talk in normal. Me, I tuck my bell, right? Okay. So I said, how babies are made, right? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I said, you made your own. And he I said, when you make it, you have your dad and you get the mom. Dad shoots the sperm, mom has the egg. But not the first. It's not first come first serve. When the sperm gets to the egg, not only one gets, a bunch of them get there, and the strongest one works his way through the eggshell. Well, I guess that's the egg. I'm gonna call it the eggshell, the cover, the outside of the egg. It makes his way inside. Once it gets inside, it dissolves, and his genetic material in the head of the sperm is released. And because I guess there's an enzyme in the egg that dissolves the sperms, the sperm's outside shell. But anyway, these two are combined. Now, how did the sperm have all that energy? Because that takes energy to swim, that takes energy to fight, that takes energy to win. You need energy. You get it from your dad. That's your dad's energy in there. And your mom's egg is over there, and her energy is all that chemical, all the enzymes or whatever, DNA, half of her DNA, all that kind of crap. That's all her energy. So now, dad's energy and mom's energy combine, and they make your energy. And your energy, it's not like a, uh, uh, a solid, like a battery. You only get so much energy and that's it. No, this energy is an energy that we don't know about. Um, it's an energy that uh, I don't even know if it's electrical. I wouldn't know what it is, but it is a force. It's an energy, and it's this energy that tells your cells split. Now remember, every time if you look at science, every time you split your energy supply divides by half. So it shrinks by half, shrinks by half, shrinks by half. Now if you started with only one cell and then you get two cells, you only get half, and then so on and so forth. So at the end, you shouldn't have enough energy to to do anything. Yet we still have enough energy to become our whole, ourselves. And we don't derive that energy from our parents, from our mother or father. I don't think so. That's our energy doing it. The only time we start living off our mother, sucking off her blood, and literally sucking off her blood, is when we go down the fallopian tube and attach ourselves to the uterus. Then from there we can start feeding off of her, and we start getting, well, as the cells divide and multiply and become organs and stuff, then we derive nutrients from her blood. But until then, no, we're just there for the ride. We just using her. We're parasites, really. If you want to be very technical about it, we're a parasite. Until we get born, we're leeches. And he shook his head. He goes, that's a weird way to look at it. I told him, but does it make sense? And he goes, in a weird way, it does. I told him, weird. So he says, so what happens when we die? I said, when we die, our energy goes in back to the wherever it came from. It's our energy, though. It's only us. Except when I said the only exceptions I see to this is when you get identical twins or identical triplets. You know how they say, you twins and they're from the same egg. So they basically they get the same energy. You get the same DNA, you get the same energy. That's how come some twins know what the other one is thinking even though they're miles apart. Well, this kind of energy doesn't recognize distance. Distance is a physical thing. This energy is beyond. It's physical, yet it's not. It's really confusing to try and understand it. I don't try to understand it. I'm just trying to recognize it, what it is. Once you recognize it, then you can try to understand it. But I'm still recognizing. I'm still in the recognizing stage. But yeah, so that's how come some identical twins know what each other's thinking, how they're feeling. So they call them up. They give them a call. Hey, are you all right? Oh, how did you know? Or they're right next to each other and they know what each other's thinking. Because your transceiver, the brain, works like that. it can pick up your twins um, vibes. What would you call them vibes? Yeah, it picks up your energy. It picks up its signal. Each of us has our own frequency, but twins or triplets, identicals, seem to share this frequency, and they can hone in on their siblings one. That's to come if you get brother and sister. No, no way, because they're made at different times. They have totally different energies, different frequencies. But twins, they share that. They share it a lot. That's how I explain. How come they can feel each other and feed off of each other. It's because they share the same energy. This energy has been seen all many times. People call it the orb, or their shadow, or they like some people they can see it. Or this person has a green glow, and we think they're nuts, but maybe not. I don't discount anything. I don't, because we don't know. And I'm not going to leave it to the scientists. These are the same guys that told us to stay 6 feet away and wear masks. I know. I'm still going to harp on that. Okay, I'm going to harp on that. And now with the stuff with Tulsi Gabbard and Obama, I have an idea about that, but I'm going to sit back and watch. Um, I'm going to be taping something, but the taping is going to be only for me. Uh, it's just to see if my predictions are right, because I don't want to come out with a stupid because I mean it's unfounded. It's just my theory, and it's just based on what I feel. But I'm telling you right now, we haven't seen the end of this story, and the story might go a different way, really. But I know it's only because if it's too good to be true, a lot of times it isn't. Yeah, and if it looks like it is, a lot of times it isn't. There are multiple sides to every story. But anyway, back to John. And he said, I never heard it really explained that way. I said, oh, the church's not going to do that. He goes, why? I said, because if they were to tell you to be independent and you don't need them, how much power and money would you think the church would have? And he said, you're right. I said, yeah. I said, it's a big corporation. That's what it is. Religion is just man's way of controlling man. They want this control. They want this power. Well, why not use God? Undisputed. You can't dispute him. You got a problem with God, take him to court. You're going to win because he's going to lose by default. Then just try and collect. But anyway, it was really a nice visit with him. And we talked for over an hour for all kinds of stuff. But it was just talking, and that's what's the beauty of I see the world, that we can do that if we can use the same language. But yeah, it's just talking, and I want to thank John. He made my morning very very enjoyable. It was very enjoyable, and it moved me enough to come and explain some stuff to you guys. You get any questions, please leave them in the comments. Tell your friends, like and subscribe to this weird guy. And thanks for liking, and thanks for subscribing. And as I leave you, always, I leave you with Ahuiho Malamapono. And have a great week, and aloha. Love you, and bye-bye.